Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the stars above for the week ahead. Since it's Monday morning, we get to look ahead at the whole week. And as I look ahead at this week, it is a quiet one, as opposed to last week's craziness, where every day there were multiple things going on that just makes us breathless. Now, it's not that uh, there's not important things going on this week, because there are. It's just that we don't have the vast number of things going on. So don't think for a moment that it's not important this week. It really is. But today we're going to have an easier time of going through all of the information, and which means I get a little more time to explain some of the deeper workings of human design in this case, or astrology, whatever it is. So we actually start the week out with the Freak to Genius channel being highlighted in our human design charts. Now, I should have done this, and I hadn't done it this morning. Bring this up for you so you can see what I'm talking about, because this is a particular channel that gets highlighted by the sun and the earth this time of year. And it's really an interesting one, because we think of this, we think of people needing to be able to say whatever it is that they want to say, whenever it is that they want to say it. And, that's simply not true in human design. We see in human design, of course, that there's right timing for all of these things. And sometimes the wrong timing means that you're seen as the freak. And other times, when it's the right timing, you get seen for the brilliance and the genius that you are. So let me share my screen real quickly here so y'all can see what it is that I'm talking about. Because this week's sun is at the gate 43, which is called the gate of insight. And the earth is at the gate 23, called the gate of transmission. So here, let me see if I can make this bigger. Let me go to StreamYard. There we go. That's about as big as I can make it. But what you can see is this week's energy connects through a channel. And the channel is the 43 up in the ajna and the 23 down here on the throat center. And this is what we call the Freak to Genius channel. And if we start by talking about the centers that these gates are sitting on, you get an idea of what it is that the energy is bringing out for us. So the ajna, the second center down, that's the second one here. It is the conceptual awareness center. It's the place where ideas and insights and perception take shape. It is not about facts or logic alone, but it's about the aha moments that arise from, deeper knowing. And sometimes that is logic, and other times logic doesn't play a role in here. The ajna processes the inspiration that you receive from the head center, which is the top center here. And it, begins to form a perspective and a way of seeing the world that feels unique to each of us. Now, in your own human design, take a look at it. Do you have a defined ajna, which means the second center here would be colored in for you? Or is it an open ajna? Because it's going to play differently for each of you based on what you see in your own human design. And the ajna is a center where we want to transmit our knowing, our ideas, our knowledge, right? The things that we are inspired by. And yet it connects to the throat in a way this week that means that we have to wait for the right audience, the right timing, and the right idea to share it. Now, let's take a look at the throat center. So the throat center here is what the gate 43 insight is connecting to, and that's called the gate of transmission, the gate 23. Now, the throat is the center of manifestation and, of course, communication. Everything in the body graph ultimately wants to make it upward toward the throat or down from the head center to the throat, because that's where the energy begins to be expressed. It's how our inner truth takes form through voice, action, or even silence. Sometimes silence is golden, right? So when a gate from the ajna connects directly to the gate to in the throat, as it does this week, then we get a direct energetic link from mental awareness to communication or to manifestation or expression, we could say. And that's the voice of genius this week, right? This week, we also have the ability to express our personal genius, to share our brilliance in a way that elevates consciousness on the planet. And yet, the voice of genius is about timing. It's about alignment, the right people, the right place, the right message in the right timing. All right. So now let's break down the 43, because the 43 is probably the one that gets the most bang here in the week. Not only because the sun is there, but because the 43 is where the insight is coming through, right? It's dropped into the energy, the idea, the inspirations dropped into the 43. And this is the gate then that receives these flashes of insight or of inner knowing, that the downloads, right? As the downloads come from the head center into the ajna, it is the gate 43 that is often trying to make sense of that download and then wanting to share it. And, I can tell you from my own experience, I don't carry the gate 43. I carry the gate 23. So it hangs there. So on a week like this, to me, I welcome the 43's presence. But in my own experience, what I've noticed is sometimes these ideas or these flashes of insight drop in, but then I fumble for the words to try to describe what it is that I'm seeing, what it is that I know, or what it is that I need to share. So when we have a week like this where the 43 is connecting to the 23, those insights have a way to get expressed. Now, it's called the gate of breakthrough even sometimes because it can bring us completely new perspectives and or solutions that others haven't seen yet, right? Because it does have this like way out kind of energy. It's like the Da Vinci energy, right? Da Vinci was, either crazy from, people in his time, or he was an utter genius. It all depended on the audience. And sometimes he was even a heretic for the information that he knew. His genius was being able to see the usefulness of things for the future. But the tricky part in all of this is that these insights that you receive can be so new and so unconventional that others might not get them. They don't understand it, i.e., they don't understand you, like you are so far out, right? And that's why sometimes we call this the freak energy, until the world catches up, and then you're suddenly a genius, right? So in the gene keys, the gate 43, or the gene key 43, moves through this frequency band that in the shadow is about deafness. La, 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 I can't hear you. Being closed to others' input or being unable to hear new possibilities. That's the shadow of this gate, gene key. In the gift, it's insight. This is where you have the ability to hear the inner voice of truth, even the kernel of it that just lands within you. And in the Siddhi, the highest expression of this particular gene key, it's the Epiphany. It's the transcendent understanding, if you will, that needs no explanation. It just lands. And then that means gate 43 really teaches us to listen inwardly first, rather than trying to convince others prematurely. So you've really got to listen inwardly to what is the right timing, the right place, the right people, the right idea. Now, if we look at the gate 23, the opposite end, it's the throat center. And we call this the gate of transmission. And if gate 43 is the spark that lights up the insight, gate 23 is the translation mechanism, right? It knows how the inner knowing finds words and expression out into the world. So the 23 breaks it all down and makes it digestible, or makes it easy for you to get or to understand. Now, we're bringing the earth into the 23. So the sun was in the gate 43, the gate of, this bright insight, and the gate 23 is the earth. So it's got to be grounded, right? There's something that has to be grounded first. And this gate, the 23, really teaches us about discernment, what to say, when to say it, and who to say it to, right? Maybe it's not the right time for that group to hear that message. And it's not about blurting out revelations either. We're going to be pretty prompted to do that with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius right now, or even having Mercury in Sagittarius might be, prompting us to try to release out this information or blurt it out. But it's about waiting for resonance, waiting until it's like the build up to the message, right? You're building it up. And if the audience is ready, it's the right time to share the punchline or to share the message, the crux of what it is that you're trying to share. And if you don't have the resonance, then you move on to a different topic, or you hold that topic in until it is the right timing. And when the timing is right, what you share lands like a lightning bolt of clarity for people, right? They go, oh my goodness, right? And I experience this quite frequently, actually, when I'm working with clients, right? I can say the same thing over and over, even in different ways. And then suddenly, boom, like a lightning bolt, it lands with people, right? I just had this experience this weekend with someone who just suddenly got clarity about the connection between the gates in human design and the gene keys, right? When the timing is right, then it happens, and you can't force it to happen before then. And oftentimes, I know that for my own self, that I feel like people feel like I'm talking up here. They're not ready for it yet, right? That's a hard thing for me to have to do, because I'm transmitting what it is that I sense, I see, I feel, or I know. And if you're not ready for it yet, then it can't land. So, okay. So keep this in mind this week, because if you are trying to transmit what you know to someone and it isn't the right timing, then it can lead to frustration both for you and for the other person. So be careful with this week. Now, in the gene keys, the gene key 23 carries the frequency band from complexity in the shadow to simplicity in the gift to quintessence in the Siddhi. So let's talk about that for a minute, because those are some really interesting, juicy words, right? Complexity, over explaining or intellectualizing insights until everything gets lost in translation. Been there, done this, not a good look, right? So complexity. In the gift, it's simplicity. And, it's distilling wisdom into elegant, clear expression. And in the Siddhi, quintessence, it's pure transmission of truth beyond words, right? It's universalized. Everybody gets it, right? It's in that moment we all understand the meaning, right? So together, the 43 and the 23 are like a mystical translator, right? The Ajna receives this divine insight, and the throat gives it voice. That is the week that we're in, okay? Now you'll notice these two connect to it. They create a channel, right? And that doesn't always happen. In fact, it only happens a very few times throughout the year that the two gates that the sun and the earth are in connect a channel. Like last week we had, two completely different centers charged up in the Human Design Week. This week we have a complete channel, and the channel is called innovative thinking, right? That already gives you a clue as to what this energy can bring us this week. Now, when the sun and the earth fully align in these gates, it forms this full circuit from inner knowing to outer articulation, right? You're able to know, create words, a transmission, and then relate it to people. Okay. And this is one of the most individual channels in the human design system. So let's take a break here for 1 second because I got to explain what that means. In human design, there are different circuits, right? That circuits are groups of gates that come together and they kind of have the same job. One of the circuits is the individual circuit. And an individual circuit is where people are here to live their truth, right? So when you have gates that are activated or channels that are activated in the individual circuit, then you're somebody with a message that needs to be shared, but needs to be shared in your unique way. And then that often leads to people feeling like they don't fit, right? Like they see things others don't. They don't get why others aren't like this. They almost, I've had Karen tell us this in trainings, and I've experienced too, where people just feel like, they were just dropped on this planet and they're looking around going, where's my people, right? I don't fit here. And by far and away, the energy in the 4323 innovative thinking and in the individual circuit is about being change agents. This is the energy of change. This is the energy of consciousness shift. So it's a big energy and it's an important energy. And everybody has all the gates in their human design. The difference between you and me would be the planets and where they're sitting and how they line up with the different channels and the different circuitry. The individual energy of this 4323 operates on its own frequency. It means it's not everyone going to get it right away, right? Sometimes I can see things so far ahead and there's nobody to catch up with me yet. Right? And it can be very frustrating. And this is why this channel is known as the freak to genius channel. Because in the beginning, you might be seen as the freak. Oh my God, what is she talking about? And then in the end, as people catch up, then they're like, oh my God, you're brilliant, right? They get it. So that's why this channel and this time of the year is really very much about our taking our time to understand who the right people are in the right timing. Because when you share your insight at the right time, then you're seen as innovative. Then you're seen as a genius. And when you share it too soon, it can sound strange or irrelevant or like, God, what planet is she from, right? So the wisdom of this week is all about waiting for recognition, for the invitation, or the right timing before speaking your insight. And when the world is ready, your truth becomes a gift. People get it, right? They get you. All right. Now, if you already have this channel defined in your human design, if by birth you already have planets at 43 and 23, then you're probably already familiar with this energy. You're already familiar with sitting in a group of people and having this aha moment and everybody looking at you like you grew two heads. You're used to this, right? So your natural gift for this original thinking is already there. Now you might feel even more inspired than usual because now we have the sun at 43 and the earth at 23 based on whatever other planets that you might have there in your own chart. So just remember to ground your ideas in first and then communicate clearly. And if people aren't getting it, then you know that it's the wrong timing to share this idea. Okay? Now, if you have one of these gates defined but not the other, then you're going to feel the temporary completion of this particular channel. Insights might suddenly have words, right? Or you may find yourself unexpectedly saying the right thing, expressing deeper truths, and like knowingness that just comes out and people get you, hopefully, right? They're the right people, they will get you. Now, if you have both centers open, the ajna is open and the throat center is open, you're going to feel temporarily plugged in. And that's because receiving downloads and sensing maybe the pressure to speak it is something new for you, right? It's defined for you this week where it's not normally defined. So the key for you is to stay relaxed and let what's ready to emerge naturally, right? And you're not meant to force the expression. Actually, none of you are meant to force the expression. Just let the energy move through you gently, right? I have this mad idea. Are you ready to hear it? If they're not ready to hear it, they will tell you, no, we don't want to hear it. And then don't waste your breath. Don't waste your time. Don't get frustrated, right? Just relax. Some other group, some other time, they're going to be ready to hear what you have to say. So this week's activation of the 4323 really reminds you that your genius is born from stillness. And this is a hard one to get, right? Because so often, as soon as we have the aha, we want to share it. And sometimes it's TMI, or it's in the wrong way. It's the wrong place, the wrong time. So when you listen to your inner voice, you'll know when to speak and when to hold your tongue, right? Or when to hold your silence, hold to silence. Silence can be golden. And sometimes the most powerful insights that you have need time to mature before they find their perfect moment of transmission, right? Because maybe it's not even settled into your own mind yet what it represents. All right, questions. Let's go back and say good morning to everybody. Let's see who's here. Good morning, Terry, one of the first persons in. That's great. Love to see you there. Good morning, Julie. Good to have you. Teddy, good morning. Joan Durchie, happy Monday to you as well. Amy D, she says it's quite chilly in Mississippi today. I saw like this big blue front, a cold front dropping through that part of the country. So I'm not surprised that you're finding it chilly there. Teddy, we might get the government open. Breaking news now. Yes, we might. At what cost is the question, right? TD Hawk, good morning. J-Lo, good morning. Christine, good morning. TD says, don't know how an 8 got in that. I don't know either. It's okay. Just hit I think the 8 sits up above the I, so you just reached up too high on the keyboard. And Teddy, Senate meeting now to review the proposal. And I think the biggest sticking point had to do with the ACA. And interesting that this would come to a climax or to some kind of solution during a Mercury retrograde, which spells bad news. All the way around spells bad news. They're going to be redoing this. They're going to have to be reviewing this. Even if they do get the government back open, no doubt we're going to be back to the same thing in a few weeks, right? Or a month. Nothing really gets settled in a Mercury retrograde unless they're very conscious. Do you think our Senate is that conscious? I don't know. Far from me to say. J-Lo, reminder to smash the like button. Thank you. And the thumbs up button to support today's broadcast. I appreciate it when you do that because new listeners find us and new people, or even, those who used to listen all the time realize, oh, darn, I've been missing this. All right. Christine North Node, I'm guessing at the 23. No 23. Maybe that's what you mean. So no 23, except for when this gate starts up tomorrow morning. Boom, there you have it, the 23. The question is, do you have anything at the 43? But either way you look at it, all of you are going to have the channel 4323 defined, right? From the 11th through the 17th or to the 17th. And it'll be an amazing week of ahas, of things that you want to share, of, ideas and inspiration that wants to come up and out. But is it the right timing for that, right? That'll be the question. 23 with asteroids. She has Juno there. This is J-Lo, by the way. Hygeia at 43. And I don't know what I know Hygeia has to do with health. Juno has to do with relationships like marriage. Eunomia, have never heard. Haha, I just had an epiphany. Awesome. Good epiphanies. Amy D. So if you have 43 defined and not 23, I guess it just swirls around in my head and never gets out. Well, there is that, Amy, except when you got to remember in human design, there's this thing called electromagnetics. So, for example, you have the 43 defined and it hangs there. I have the 23 defined, not the 43, and it hangs there. So when you and I meet, genius and brilliance and ideas and inspiration can flow freely back and forth, right? That's the nature of the electromagnetic. You have people in your life, no doubt, that have the 23, that you can feel like, oh, I get it now, right? Or I see what it is that I can share and people will understand me. And that happens when that 43-23 comes together. But this week, it will be the Earth at the gate 23 that defines that for you. So grounding in, if you will, some of the insights, some of the brilliance, some of the genius ideas or inspiration that you have, right? So it's the grounding piece that you're usually missing that will land this week, right? Okay. And if you have 43 defined and not 20, okay, so yeah, up until then, maybe it is swirling around in your head, or worse than that, you attempt to express that genius and it doesn't land with the right people, or they look at you like, what are you talking about? I don't get you, right? So that can be a big problem with the gate 43. All right. Amy D says, Christine can relate to that. Sandra, good morning to you. Christine says ACA, SNAP, and Medicaid, all of that, all not settled. And I don't know that a Mercury retrograde is the right time to settle it unless they can be open-minded enough to look at those impacts on people, on the real people out there that would have to live without said SNAP, Medicaid, or insurance benefits, or the money that they're having to pay in the price rises that are happening in insurances. Okay, Asa, good morning. Christine Buckingham, yes, defined 43, Ajna, Mars, Capricorn design side. So yeah, definitely something that you need to be aware of, that you have these great ideas, but how do I bring them into play? And Julie has them open. Asa has the 43 defined. I totally get it. In your head stuff. Definitely having the 43 defined, but with no outlet can be very frustrating. So the key, if you have that defined and it hangs in your human design, is to wait until you have the right person in the right time to share your brilliance with, or else it gets misunderstood, right? And often the way to find out if you have the right audience in front of you or the right person is to say, hey, I have a brilliant idea about how to solve this problem. Are you open to hearing it? Right? Are you ready for some out of the box thinking? And if their answer is no, then don't share. But often people will be like, yes, and you've just primed the pump, right? You've just primed them to hear your insight and to make the connections that hopefully it is that you want them to make, right? So there you have that. All right. Any other questions about the 43-23? TD Hawk says she has 23 defined and it hangs, just like me, right? There you have that, the 23 hanging. You're just waiting for an audience that is going to get you, right? Or that some idea is going to come in and it's going to land and you're going to go, oh, that's it. That's what I needed. Now I can tell you all about this idea. Now I can share this brilliant insight, right? Now it all makes sense. And the 23 doesn't always have to share it. It can be something that is an insight just for you, right? The brilliance. So you might have a combination of those things this week. Insights that break through, that are just for you, and insights that break through that are meant for you to share. So that's kind of this energy of this week. All right. Thank you. Now let's go on to the next thing for the week, which is Jupiter retrograding in Cancer, right? Jupiter's late in retrograding in this party, right? So he has already made it up to almost like 25 degrees in Cancer. And now he's retrograding. And I'm thinking like he's speeding through, but he really has been at a fast clip. And now he's slowed down and will retrograde now for the next several months. So, Jupiter is our cosmic guide and teacher. That planet is all about growth and expansion and how it is that we can take, growth a step at a time. Although often Jupiter can prompt us to overgrow, right? Or overcommit. So we have to be careful with that expansion energy. But now it also represents faith, by the way, right? The faith that we have in ourselves, in our governments, in our country, in our relationships, in our religions, our faith, in the systems that we use, that kind of thing. Wherever Jupiter is traveling in your chart is where you're being invited to see life through a bigger lens, right? Through the wide lens. So find Cancer in your astrology chart, right? I have Cancer on the rise, so it's my first house. So it's my perspective that's changing or growing. It's my personality really that's looking at how to nurture and how to build community and things like that. So each of you have Cancer somewhere in the chart. Even if you don't have birth planets in it, it's still there. And you have Jupiter transiting through it. So that house, whatever house it might be, is where growth and expansion is occurring for you, has been occurring for you. And now with Jupiter turning inward, that growth takes on a little bit different look. So let's talk about Jupiter's growth when it was on the direct mode, when it was outer growth, right? The outward journey of growth with Jupiter. So when Jupiter is in direct motion or forward motion, its energy flows outward, right? So your wisdom, your faith, your expansion growing outward. It's the archetype of the seeker and the optimist, right? Urging us to explore, to learn, to expand our horizons, right? Seeing beyond the nose, right? Seeing beyond where we've been. And we tend to look for meaning when Jupiter is direct through experience, which means through travel, through learning, through spirituality, through connection with people that tend to broaden our horizons or broaden our perspectives. In the soul blueprint, the cosmology of your soul blueprint, Jupiter represents the teacher within you. So you also can look to where your own natal Jupiter sits, right? That's the part of your soul that longs to understand life's grand design and to share your wisdom with others. When Jupiter is moving forward, then we seek that wisdom through engagement with the world. Maybe we go out, we try something new, we grow, we discover, right? So it's prompting both the growth of the transiting Jupiter, right? That's the part that's being added to your natal Jupiter, wherever that may be, okay? So for example, I'm going to use myself since I know where mine is. Jupiter is in Aquarius in my chart. And it's in the 7th house, which is, it's in the 8th house, excuse me. So it's all about transforming, right? And growing through transformation, growing through change. And then if we now look at where Jupiter is in my 1st house, now they're in a very tough relationship, right? There's a tough relationship between the 1st house and the 8th house. The 8th house wants to merge. The 1st house wants to be itself, right? So I'm having to solve some kind of conundrum here. All of you are having to do this in your own soul cosmology. And Jupiter retrograde now switches that up and moves that process inward. Now it's the inward journey of faith, of growth, right? So the expansion is inward, not outward. And it's doing this work in the sign of Cancer. And it's doing this work in the house that you have Cancer in. right? So I have it in the first house, that's where the work's being done. If you have it in the 10th house, it's being done in the 10th house, work and career, profession, your authority, your authenticity. If you say have it in the 6th house, right, then it's maybe working on your health and well-being, or your routines and your daily habits, right? Maybe those things are changing, right? So instead of expanding outward, when Jupiter calls us, or when Jupiter turns retrograde, it calls us inward, and to reflect on what we've already learned, and to deepen our faith, from the inside out, right? Now, let me also say that probably a good percentage of you out there have Jupiter retrograde in your natal chart. So you are already in a lifetime of a lot of inward growth, where issues around faith might be important, of primary concern, of what you're here to teach both yourself and others. Okay. And the other part of you have Jupiter in direct motion. So when Jupiter changes direction for either one, either it's solidifying, if you have it retrograde, it's solidifying what you came here to learn and teach. And if you don't have it in retrograde, when it goes retrograde, you're suddenly kind of pushed inward to grow. Okay. So this is not a time of shrinking, right? Often, and I've been guilty of this in my own life, thinking, small. Jupiter in retrograde by birth, small thinking, right? It's rather a time of integration. As all retrograde planets do, they cause us to go inward and integrate the things that we've learned, the things that we've experienced. It's where we move from knowledge to wisdom, right? To where the experiences, get built into a cosmology. And retrograde Jupiter asks questions like, what do I truly believe? Where have I outgrown an old philosophy and I'm ready to grow into a new one? Or do my beliefs still nurture my spirit, or am I ready to rewrite them? And you also need to remember that Jupiter is on a 12-year cycle. So some of you who have Jupiter in Cancer by birth are having a Jupiter return. And you're moving through Jupiter energy as a way to move to the next level. So if you have Jupiter in Cancer by birth, you're on an evolutionary track right now. Now, in the soul blueprint, it is this moment when your inner sage reclaims the teaching role, and you stop looking for validation and meaning outside of you, and instead, start trusting your inner knowing, what that inner voice says. I already know what's true for me, is what it might say, right? I already know. So Jupiter bringing you that wisdom, that knowledge, that lands inward, integrates inward. And this will be a several months process, right? It doesn't happen overnight. In fact, Jupiter doesn't leave Cancer until I think it's late June, early July of 2026. So, we've got probably 4.5, 5 months of Jupiter retrograde, and then forward again to integrate everything in the outer world that we just integrated within us. So it's almost like breathing, right? If you think about the in-breath, that's where Jupiter's taking us this week, versus the out-breath when he turns back to forward motion. Okay. Now the sign of Cancer, let's look a little bit deeper at the sign of Cancer here, because the Cancer is emotional growth. It's the sign of emotional energy. It's ruled by the moon, and therefore we have moods involved. We have emotional energy involved. Now that Jupiter is retrograding in Cancer, the focus turns inward toward emotional maturity, to inner safety, and to belonging. And Cancer is the archetype of the nurturer, right? The home of the heart, the home of the mother, right? The nurturing energy. So where growth happens through feeling, not just thinking, right? This is not only thinking energy. So when Jupiter moves backward through Cancer, You may find yourself reflecting on your emotional foundations. You may find yourself asking questions about what makes you feel safe and supported. You might find yourself asking how you nurture others and how do you nurture yourself, because nurturing others without being balanced by how do I nurture myself means that you get out of equilibrium, right? Then it becomes over emotional, over nurturing, maybe even mothering kind of energies. And then, that leads us to the next question. Where have you been giving too little or too much? Right? What have you been doing? So we got to bring it back into some kind of equilibrium. This is also a time for us all to explore our spiritual roots, your connection to family, your connection to ancestry, and the emotional patterns that have been passed down to you through generations. Cancer naturally rules the fourth house of a chart. The fourth house is the house of home and family and roots, genealogy, ancestral roots, right? The big pathway of your family, your familial line. So it is an opportunity for us with Jupiter moving through Cancer to reclaim faith in the goodness of life, in the integrity of people, and then reconnect with what's true from our own hearts, right? What is in your own heart? Now, if we look at this through human design, in human design, Jupiter is in the gate 62, which is on the throat center, interestingly enough. And it is a gate that we call preparation, or in traditional human design, it was called the gate of details. And I can go back and share my screen for you if you want to see. No, I don't want an image file. Sorry, wrong button. I would like to share my screen, and let me share it. And actually, let me click on where it is at this moment, right here at the gate 62. Okay, that's where Jupiter is sitting. That's where Jupiter has been sitting. And that's where Jupiter sits until January 5th of 2026. So there's this long-term transit in this particular gate. And this gate is in the throat center. So we know it has something to do with expression. It has something to do with communication, creation, manifesting, right? It's a very important energy. And 62 is about bringing structure and precision to what we communicate and to what we create. It's the energy of organization before manifestation. It's like the back work, right? It's the stuff we do to prepare. It's the gathering up the ingredients, measuring out the ingredients, then putting those ingredients together to bake a cake or make a turkey or whatever it is you're making, right? It's the prep work. And when Jupiter sits here, it's asking us to refine our ideas, our beliefs, and even our plans before we expand them further. So we're kind of seeing a slowdown in the bringing out of our plans, right? So that we could take more time to consider what we want to do. Do we have everything that we need? We're not launching something new right now. Not really. Not with Mercury retrograde for sure. We're kind of clarifying the foundation so that what comes next has integrity and has resonance and has the feel of having been planned and executed with a strategy. Now, in the gene keys, the gate 62 or gene key 62 moves through this frequency band of intellect in the shadow, purely thinking, brain-based logic, to the gift, which is precision, and to the Siddhi, which is impeccability. And I love these words, but if we, think of, so intellect for us right now, in the main, kind of feels like it's our mind, right? That it's us being smart, that it's us being wise. But the intellect relies on facts alone, right? And it misses the deeper meaning. It's looking at the logic. It's looking at the numbers. It's looking at the digits, if you will, and how the facts and the figures, not what they mean, not the deeper meaning. right? We can relate this to the government at this point in time, right? Looking at, they're looking at numbers. Okay, great, right? The numbers of people who might be missing out on their food benefits, or who are faced with looking at a bigger percentage of their income going to insurance benefits. And yeah, okay, on one hand, that's a budgetary concern, but it doesn't take into content at all, or to consideration, that these are people, and these people are already living on a dime's edge. Perhaps, right? I mean, there could be people out there flaunting the system, granted. But for the main, these people are going to be impacted by those decisions, by their inaction and their action, right? So if you don't take the full thing into consideration, you are not doing the gene key 62 proud. You are in the shadow energy. Now, when we bring it to the gift level is the word precision. And this is bringing clarity and attention to detail, but in the service of truth, right? I'm not saying forget the facts and the figures, that they're meaningless, because that's not true, right? They are meaningful, but they're not meaningful if they're not in the service of truth. And what does that mean, right? What does that mean? When we go to the Siddhi, the highest expression, where we have the word impeccability, it's one of the four wisdoms that come through Miguel Ruiz's work, or Miguel, is it Ruiz? Be impeccable with your word, right? Be impeccable. Impeccability is divine order expressed through simplicity and grace, right? The simple fact is people need their benefits, right? People need health insurance, affordable health insurance. They don't need to be broken, right, any more than they're already broken by having to pay such exorbitant fees to pay CEOs of corporations in the healthcare field millions of dollars a year. There's no impeccability there. There's no integrity there, right? So the four agreements. Thank you, J-Lo. Thank you. And this perfectly mirrors the Jupiter retrograde lesson, that true wisdom doesn't come from the gathering of more data. It really comes from aligning your beliefs and your words with higher truth, right? Not glossing it over, using your intellect to shine up a bunch of words and a bunch of ideas. No, going deeper to that, to the truth, digging in. Now, in the greater language of your soul's blueprint, Jupiter retrograde in gate 62 symbolizes the teacher returning to the temple for more learning, right? The teacher returning to the temple to integrate what they have learned, perhaps with the 4323, to integrate what that you have learned so that you can precisely and with insight express it to the right people in the right time. So it's an interesting week. Like I said in the beginning, it might be a light week, but it's not light. It's deep, right? So you're revisiting now the architecture of your beliefs and checking the foundations of your emotional life, your truth, what really is the context of all of your beliefs. You're preparing your inner sanctuary for the next cycle of growth, because that always comes, right? It always comes, right? So it's a sacred pause, and it's an invitation for you to go deeper into trust, deeper into trusting your intuition and your own emotional intelligence, right? So by January, when Jupiter goes back into a different gate, because you'll still be retrograde at that point in time, you'll be ready to share wisdom from the preparation and the planning, and Jupiter will move backward into the gate 53, which is the gate of new beginnings. So you're in this planning sequence, right? And then you'll be more emotionally grounded, and the plan might have some actual spiritual authenticity to it, right? Authenticity to it. So this week, rather than pushing for outward growth, listen for what's being refined inwardly. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer through gate 62 really has a message for us that says, prepare your message, polish your beliefs, bring your heart and your mind into divine order. Because when Jupiter turns direct again in 2026, the world will be ready for what your soul has quietly perfected during this period of time. All right. Any questions about this? Yes, the 4 agreements. J-Lo says, helping me refine my pearl. Awesome. The 17, right? Because your 17 is connected to the 62, right? The 6. Now you've got that whole channel, which, is linking. The highest expression of the 17 is omniscience, knowing it all, knowing how all of this fits. And then the Jupiter sitting at 62 says, now, how do I put it all together? Right? You're integrating it now, not necessarily speaking it out yet, putting it together so it can be brought out. Tina, Jupiter's in the 7th direct. And that's interesting, right? Because it's growing through relationships. I mean, that's the intent, growing through relationships. And Christine Buckingham, we are the only first world country that has a healthcare system for profit. And that's upside down. Totally upside down. I think that's upside down. And I'm sure a lot of people think so too, except the people who are benefiting from said upside down system, right? What date is Jupiter direct again? Let's see if I can find that date for you. I don't have it off the top of my head. It will be, that's Saturn direct. Still retrograde. It goes direct on March 11th, 2026. And, after the 62, Jupiter moves back to the 53, which is called the gate of new beginnings. But it will also retrograde one gate further, which is into the 39, which is the gate of provocation, right? The gate where we are catalyzing change, either for ourselves or for others. Often that provocation reaches outward, where we're changing other people's minds and lives and so forth. And then when he does move forward again, he's moving forward again, and at the 39, at the 39, and then moves quickly again to the 53. So we have this like quick change artist thing going on with Jupiter as we move into 2026, where moving us out of provocation into new beginning, and then, forward motion will take it back to the preparation gate. So we're not quite done with all of that energy yet, right? So it'll be interesting. So then as we close up today's broadcast, take a breath and just notice, where this week is filling you up, because it's definitely, there's a lot of space in the week, but it's not an empty week by any means. It's filled with subtle genius, your genius, and it's the kind that blooms in stillness and self-awareness. And we begin with that sun and earth that are activating the channel of innovative thinking. So we're all brilliant, and you all are anyway, right? You all carry the channel of brilliance, the channel of genius or innovative thinking. You are all geniuses, but in your own way, right? It's a unique genius that you all have. And this freak to genius energy that we lovingly call it that, connects the ajna to the throat. So it's bringing the ideas and inspiration into a usable form, right? Into words that can make sense. And this is where that insight seeks a voice, where it reminds you that timing and trust are everything here. Trusting what you know, trusting that the right timing and the right people to share your insights with. Then as we move Jupiter into retrograde in Cancer, it invites you inward to refine your beliefs and your emotional foundations and prepare, right, to launch, prepare your next steps. This wisdom here is taking you, kind of calling you out to take the time to organize your thoughts and clarify your truths before you take action. It's a way for you to build your faith from within, faith in yourself, faith in your words, faith in your actions. And finally, what I didn't mention here today is that also Mercury is retrograde and will conjunct Mars this week on Wednesday, I believe it is. And that's interesting because we've already had Mercury in direct motion connect with Mars as he moved into the sign of Sagittarius, as they both moved in. And now in retrograde, Mercury meets up with Mars again. And this is where your thoughts and actions converge in purpose. And you become unstoppable, right? If you can really harness this energy, you become unstoppable. But only when you're guided by the still inner voice of your soul, right? It's just not action for the sake of action. It has meaning. And by the way, Mars and Mercury meet in the gate 9, which the gate 9 is all about convergence or focus, right? Bringing the idea that focus is sacred, that you've got focus, concentration, and that when those can converge, that's when you become really unstoppable. So the theme that's weaving through the entire week for us is about preparation. It's about precision. It's about presence, the 3 Ps this week, right? You're being asked to quiet the noise. You're being asked to listen for insight and to speak only when your words carry the frequency of truth. And this is, the essence of your soul blueprint, by the way, right? Aligning your inner wisdom and your heart and voice so that your outer world reflects the harmony that you hold within, especially when you're living your truth. All right. Last questions from anyone. J-Lo, my Saturn is 39. So interesting. Surely being refined. Indeed, indeed. And think about this. It's Jupiter that's moving backward to that Saturn. So we have Saturn that's constrictive, and the opposite is Jupiter's expansion. So now you're bringing expansion backward to constriction. So what is it that you might still need to be paring away out of your life or pruning away out of your life, out of your beliefs, before that Jupiter can go direct and move forward across that? So maybe think of it as, what are you being provoked to really learn or really understand or digest before you move forward, J-Lo? Kamal, hello. Good to see you out there. And yes, TJ, I will pull a card. Let's see if I can. You guys would just laugh. This weekend, I spent a good deal of time. No, I don't want that deck. I spent a good deal of time organizing my desk, and it looks like a disaster still happened here. Okay, we're going to pull an Oracle of the 7 Energies by Colette Baron Reed. Let's see what I come up with here. My daughter just got back with her coffee, and the dogs are going nuts. Okay, so we have 2 cards that jumped out here. And I literally didn't even get to shuffle before the cards flew. And interesting 2 cards. One is a Pinocchio-looking character called a Tall Tale. You can see that. Let me move it over this way. There you go, a Tall Tale. And it is card number 35, which is an 8. So what lies are we telling ourselves? What tall tales are we telling ourselves? We'll find that out. And the second one says broken open. Broken open. And it's card 28, which is a 10, which is a 1, a new beginning. So because a tall tale pulled out first, let's look at that. Card 35. So the key concept here is denial. Concealing the truth so you can manipulate and control a situation. Fear-based communication. Creating a narrative to hide behind. Not allowing the fear of what others will think to influence your words. Learning to communicate from a place of authenticity. I swear sometimes. You or someone else is telling a tall tale right now. You always know if a falsehood is spoken because it doesn't feel grounded. When you lie, you get high on an illusory sense of power that is doomed to fail at some point. You feel driven by the fear of exposure, but something makes you stick to your story, even though you know it has no substance. Whatever lie we are caught up in isn't as important as the motive for it. Why does anyone lie? Perhaps we don't believe the truth is good enough, or we want to keep doing what we know we shouldn't be doing. Then there is the lie put forth while in denial, such as hiding an active addiction. In this scenario, we may believe our own lies. The tall tale, the white lie, the stretching of the truth, and the blatant fabrication are all about control, the desire for it, the lack of it, the need to maintain it so we can manipulate the outer world and hide our inner one. Today, ask for the truth. Let's say this week, ask for the truth. Be willing to pay the price and be okay with the vulnerability your lie is exposing in yourself and others. Transparency is required to get to where you need to go, to be truly empowered, to reveal the strength of what is true and authentic. Any other path leads to a dead end. Remember the saying, the truth will set you free, and get ready to fly unfettered. Cool. All right, that's that one. Now, the second card was broken open. So let's go backwards to get to that one. Okay, and the key concept of broken open is the gift of grief, being shattered as a result of loss, the potential inherent in failure. There are situations in life when you see the value of loss, grief, and a broken heart. Yet it's not the pain or loss itself that must be the focus of your attention here. Nope, not even the story of what happened. The details surrounding what has brought you to your knees is as important as what results from the experience. Can you see this situation has broken you wide open, enabling you to have an even greater capacity for love, compassion, empathy, and understanding? You cannot be the same person as before. The only way forward is to move through it without resistance or manipulation, without attempting to bargain with unseen forces, because none of your usual fallbacks can put you together again. If you do fall prey to self-absorption or self-pity, it will just make it harder to get to the next gradual phase leading to relief. Yet even if you are prolonging the inevitable, you will get there eventually. The gift is in accepting who you've become as a consequence of integrating this difficult experience and allowing yourself to be more than you were. This wisdom comes at a high price, but the value of your experience of moving through and to the other side is unsurpassed. Love the you that is the result of being broken open by life's challenges and lessons. Wow, that card is not what I thought it was going to be, but I guess it does make some kind of sense in the aspect of telling the truth, and then what does that break open within you, and what kind of grief is sitting there, right, in the loss. All right, these were deep cards. I hope that sits okay with everybody. Take care. Have a great week. I'll see you on Friday. Bye for now.